My name is Danilo. I'm 27 years old. And just recently, I found out that the man I called Dad all my life was never my real father. But that's not even the worst part. It all began on an ordinary Monday morning. I was drinking coffee, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the loneliness that always hits after a weekend. I've been feeling strange for days, like something was about to change. I didn't know how right I was. My mother called. Her voice was trembling. Danilo, come home. There's something we need to talk about. It's important. I hadn't visited home in months. Ever since my father passed away 2 years ago, being in that house felt like drowning in memories. But I could hear in her voice, this wasn't just nostalgia or grief. Something was wrong. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table, pale, eyes red. In front of her, a sealed envelope. This was left for you, by your father, before he died. He asked me to give it to you when the time was right. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a letter, written in his familiar, strong handwriting. Son, if you're reading this, I'm no longer with you. And I know this will hurt, but you deserve to know the truth. I'm not your biological father. I met your mother when she was already pregnant. She was scared, alone, abandoned by the man who made her believe in love, only to turn into a monster. I loved her, and I loved you from the moment I first laid eyes on you. You were crying, red-faced, kicking your tiny feet in a hospital cot. I knew then I was going to be your dad, whether you ever knew the truth or not. But now, you deserve to know everything. The name of your biological father is written on the back of this letter. What you choose to do with that information is up to you. Just remember, being a father is not about blood. It's about staying, even when you're not obligated to. And I stayed because I loved you. I couldn't breathe. My world shattered in a matter of seconds. I thought about all the times he hugged me, taught me how to ride a bike, defended me when I got into trouble at school, sat by my bed when I had pneumonia. None of it was fake. He had chosen to love me, to raise me. But now I was filled with an emptiness I couldn't explain. I turned the letter over. The name read, Viktor Sokolov. I stared at it for a long time. The name rang no bells. Nothing familiar. But something inside me ignited. A mix of anger, fear, and curiosity. I had to find him. I had to understand why he left. Who he was. Who I was. Over the next few weeks, I started digging. I used social media, online databases, anything I could get my hands on. I even hired a private investigator. Turns out, Viktor Sokolov wasn't just some man who left his pregnant girlfriend. He had a record. A big one. Assault. Armed robbery. And the biggest one, manslaughter. He'd spent 17 years in prison. He was released 5 years ago. Since then, he lived in a small town just 2 hours from mine. Alone. I debated for days whether to go see him. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to yell at him. I wanted to ask him why he'd left us. Why he'd hurt my mother. Why he'd allowed someone else to raise me without ever checking in. But I also wanted to understand. To see for myself who he was. I drove there on a cloudy Sunday morning. The kind of gray sky that feels like a warning. I found the address. A small, decaying house on the edge of town. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Finally, the door opened. A tall man with deep-set eyes, gray hair, and a haunted face looked at me. He stared for a moment, and then his lips trembled. Danilo, I froze. How'd he know? I've seen your pictures. Your mother posted a few. I recognized you the moment I opened the door. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, Why? Why did you leave her? Why did you leave me? He sighed and sat down on the steps. Because I was a coward. Because I was broken. Because I thought you'd be better off without me. And you were. I didn't speak. I just stood there. And then, to my own surprise, I sat beside him. He told me everything. About how he met my mother when they were young and wild. About how he got involved with dangerous people. How one night changed everything. A drunken fight. A man dead, blood on his hands. He never forgave himself. He thought prison was what he deserved. When I got out, I wanted to find you. But you had a father. A good one. And I had no right to come into your life. I don't know how long we sat there. Minutes. Hours. Years. I left without saying much. But something in me shifted. Weeks passed. I visited his house again. We talked. Not about us, but about life. Books. Music. Food. Slowly, something like understanding began to form. But my real father, the man who raised me, remained my hero, and always would be. Months later, my mother finally opened up, told me everything, how she had bruises for months, how she begged him to stop drinking, how she almost gave up on life until she met the man I called Dad. He didn't just save me, she said. He saved you. Now, I live with two truths, that I come from darkness, but I was raised in light, and sometimes love isn't inherited, it's chosen. So if you're reading this, wondering whether blood defines you, let me tell you, it doesn't. What defines you is who stays. And my dad? He stayed. He chose me. Every single day. And I will honor him. Every day of my life. Danilo. Months passed since that first difficult meeting with Victor. Our encounters were cautious, fragile, like walking on ice that could crack at any moment. For me, every visit was a battle between resentment and curiosity, between anger and a desperate need to understand. For him, I sensed a deep, silent regret, a loneliness heavier than any prison sentence. At first, the conversations were short, polite, awkward. He'd ask about the weather, about my job, my hobbies, as if trying to find some common ground to stand on. But soon, little by little, walls began to fall. One rainy afternoon, I showed up with a photo album, a collection of snapshots from my childhood, teenage years, moments frozen in time. Birthdays with candles blown out, family vacations, my graduation day. Victor flipped through the pages slowly, his eyes lingering on pictures of me with the man who raised me, the one who loved me without question. I missed all this, he said quietly, his voice breaking. I never got a chance to be part of it. I nodded. Neither did I, but you were always there in a way. He looked at me with something that felt like both pain and hope. I used to write letters from prison. Never sent them. I didn't deserve to be part of your life. But I wrote about you, about your mother. I asked him to tell me about her, the woman who gave birth to me, whose courage I'd always admired but never fully understood. Victor's eyes grew distant. She was everything I wasn't. Strong, brave. When I first met her, she believed in me, in us. But then, I became a shadow, a danger. I couldn't protect her. I couldn't protect you. That night, I lost myself. He told me about the night he was convicted, a drunken fight, a man dead, and his life shattered into pieces. Prison wasn't just a place for him. It was a purgatory where he paid for sins and lost years he would never get back. I felt anger rise again, but also sadness for a man who was broken before he could even be a father. Did you ever try to contact Mom? Or me? I asked hesitantly. He swallowed hard. Every year on your birthday, I called her number, but I never said a word. I just listened. Sometimes I heard you. Your voice. I wanted to tell you who I was, but I was scared. I remembered that strange silence on the phone once, years ago. The unexplained breath on the other end. I had thought it was a prank. Maybe it wasn't. The realization shook me. Even in his silence, he had reached out. For weeks, I wrestled with conflicting feelings. Could I forgive him? Did I even want to? And what did forgiveness mean? Was it for him, for me, or for my mother? Meanwhile, my relationship with the man who raised me grew stronger. I told him everything. The letter, the visits, my emotions tangled like a storm inside me. He listened, never jealous or hurt, only supportive. You're still my son, he said simply. Nothing can change that. That meant everything. One afternoon, Victor invited me inside his home, a small, worn-down place filled with books, old photos, and memories. The walls told stories of a life too hard, too fast. We sat together, sharing tea and quiet moments. For the first time, I saw him not as the man who left, but as a person, flawed, scared, but trying. We talked about dreams he once had, about music, books, and the possibility of starting over. I share my hopes and fears. Somehow, our broken past began to weave into something new. But life wasn't done testing us. One cold morning, I got a call. Victor was in the hospital. A heart attack. I rushed to be by his side, fighting panic and helplessness. As I sat next to his bed, watching the shallow rise and fall of his chest, I realized how fragile life is, how quickly everything can change. He opened his eyes, weak but alive. "You came," he whispered. "Of course," I said. In those quiet hours, he told me things he hadn't said before, about regrets, about hope, about wanting to make peace with his past. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I'm grateful you gave me a chance to be part of your life, even if just a little." I squeezed his hand. "You don't need to ask for forgiveness. I'm just glad you're here." The days after were filled with visits, calls, and slowly healing. We talked about the future, tentative plans, dreams deferred but not dead. Victor wanted to make amends in his own way. He started volunteering at a local center, helping others who had lost their way. I helped him reconnect with my mother, carefully, with patience. Together, we built something fragile but real. This journey taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about presence, choice, and love, even when that love is complicated. And as for me, I carry both my fathers in my heart. The one who raised me, whose love was constant and true, and the one who gave me life, whose mistakes and regrets shaped who I am. Both taught me something important, that people are not defined by their worst moments, that forgiveness can be a bridge, not a barrier, and that sometimes the greatest gift is the chance to start again. So here I stand, a man shaped by secrets, pain, love, and hope. Not perfect, not whole, but growing, healing, and finally, ready to write my own story.